Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese.
Present.
Councilor Fascio.
Present.
Councilman Waldron.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Present.
Councilman Crestis is not with us this evening. This meeting this evening was originally planned to be a budget presentation meeting, which it still is. But in the interim, we have to make appointments, at least one appointment to an expired board member. Well, shouldn't phrase it such that way, but an expired term of a board member, L. Odachowski. He's been serving on our personnel board for the last few years, and so we're seeking his reappointment tonight. And so that was the purpose of the special advertised meeting. So with that, you would entertain a nomination.
Yeah, so I would like to appoint Al Odachowski to the Personnel Board, and I would ask if anybody would second that.
Second.
Any public comment? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilor Fascio.
Yes.
Councilman Waldron.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes. So at this point, I will adjourn the special meeting, and then we can move into our budget presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vince. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. We've been there the last few years, and so the format that I'm using is much the same. I'm trying to bring things into the public forum that we're looking at for next year. But if you attend the meetings regularly, which a lot of you do, during the year we're bringing a lot of projects too. So in the course of all of this information, which I'm going to try to get through rather diligently, this is not really a full picture of everything that's going to happen next year. There's a lot of projects that we have right now ongoing. There's a lot of plans next year that aren't here being shown, but this is really meant to be a high-level sort of overview of where we stand as a municipality and some of our biggest funds. And I do have some new things this year to share. First, I wanted to put out there some upcoming meeting dates. We did have a change which was advertised. That's the meeting on the 24th that's been rescheduled. So today is the 10th, and that's the beginning of our budget cycle at the beginning of it. And then we have our first hearing on the 24th. The second one is on the 8th. And then we're looking for budget approval in December, probably on the 15th if all goes well. It would be scheduled for. And then by the charter, our reorganizational meeting would be on January 5th next year. That's coming up. And that's at 8 p.m. for everyone. That's set by the charter. Usually we meet at 7. That's going to actually be at 8. So all of this will be online too. Presumably anyone that's interested could review it there. And then for next year, our calendar of meetings, that hasn't been approved yet. So either on or before the 5th of January, that'll be done too. So these are just upcoming dates as we go forward. The first graph, it looks a little different from what I've shared it in the past, but when you make it look that way, it really is dramatic effect. We've in the last few years been focusing a little more on some of the bigger financial indicators at Penn Hills, such as our fund balance. We actually did a fund balance policy. The mayor and council approved that earlier in the year. But when you look at this, and this is from our audits, we recently completed our 2024 audit, and we actually posted a $2 million surplus for 24. I mentioned that last week, or I'm sorry, at the last meeting I had alluded to that. And if a lot of these graphs are similar from meeting to meeting, it's because they are. I mean, this is as an ongoing sort of building effect of highlighting things that are going on. So we're going to continue to see this as we've begun to put a lot of this historical data together. And as you know, in 2022, we had our credit rating improved to A+ stable. Apparently, when the bank made that decision in 22, they knew what they were doing, because in 24 we took a surplus without having any tax increase. There's no tax increase proposed for 2026. So there's no tax increase for 26. Penn Hills had a $500,000 increase for this year, but that's not reflective in this graph, because this graph is just ending for 24. And then we find ourselves, we have a $15 million just about fund balance next year with no reductions in service. And so it's probably as good of a time as any to thank the mayor and the council and the people and the staff working here over the years to make this possible, only because a lot of communities and a lot of other levels of government, they don't have on-time budgets, and they're not maybe looking at some of the things financially that we're doing. So I think to the extent that you wanted to sort of gauge our general financial posture, it's definitely been improved the last few years. So I think that's much to everybody's credit, especially some of our longer term folks that have been on council, and anyone that was helped program the money that we got from the American Rescue Funds, and some of the people that was in this room over the years. Thank you very much to all of them. Everyone knows who they are, but especially thank you to Deputy Mayor and to you as well, because you were a big part of that. So that's a really good graph that we like to see. But you can just see a few years ago wasn't so great. And this is similar. I try to bring in to you some of our bigger challenges next year that we're looking at. Everything's gone up. Everyone should not be surprised by that. We've had a lot of increases, although our healthcare insurance, we was able to have some limits on that compared to what's going on in some other sectors. But obviously it's challenging times. We have a lot of cost increases, as you might imagine. Most levels of government do have similar, and some of these challenges I've shared in the past because they're still here. We still have some staffing challenges. We have recruitment and retention challenges. We were able to lock in some electricity prices earlier in the year, a couple months ago, and that's gonna give us a little bit of predictability over the next few years. But we have a lot of challenges, and we continue to have some of our biggest expenses increase. This is just a real brief calculation. I'm including this as a slide this year to show a little bit about our assessments. So our assessments, if our total residential and commercial valuation, it's about $1.6 billion. And so whenever we were to take the 6.944 mills against that, and then we have a collection rate of about 91.5%, which is really good, by the way. That's a pretty good collection rate. So Sherry and I have been using a new feature at the county government has a portal where we're able to log in now and see what the assessments are doing on a regular basis. But there's some historical data, but it only goes back so far, because one of the things we're going to try to do is to maybe try to track our assessments as we go, just to see how things are doing. But no tax increase next year, and there's some information about the median home price, $189,000 median home price. And so if you have the median home price of that, you would be around, that doesn't sound, that would be what it would be for your average tax bill for municipal. And you're getting a lot for that. And as far as the taxes are concerned, we've never brought this into the meeting just to share it with the Act 511 taxes are, right? There's a category in our budget called Act 511 taxes, and it's basically the wage taxes. It's all the things on this list here, but it's quite a bit of revenue, because we actually get more. We're dependent most heavily on real estate taxes and wage taxes, as all municipalities are in Pennsylvania. But we actually have a little more revenue come in from our Act 511 taxes than we do from our real estate taxes, and that has to do with the fact that we're home rule charter, and that's actually a good thing. So the more people that move in, the more affordable home buying is, the more access people have to jobs, to transportation. That all plays directly into our budget. So at least on the assessment side, things have really, we've seen increases the last few years in our assessed valuation. So that's a good thing. Here's a graph that tries to show you the biggest tax revenues that we have. And we only really have two. We have real estate taxes, and then we have Act 511 taxes. A lot of the rest of our revenue that comes in is fees, charges for service, grants, and things like that. And so that doesn't really change a whole lot, from year to year. But one thing I would want to point out that I was thinking about today, if you look at where it says the state shared revenue, a lot of that's pension state aid, because every year we get pension state aid, and so even though that shows up as a revenue, there's a bill that goes with it. So sometimes, even though there's a revenue for everything, well, sometimes there's not a revenue for everything, but a lot of the times when there is a special revenue for a specific item, there's a bill that goes with it. So, but that's not really changing. But you could see that that's the majority of our revenue. Here we have a graph that's somewhat historic, and it's showing you one of our bigger costs. We talk about it all the time. It's our refuse and recycling cost. Police department, refuse and recycling. In any community, those are going to be some of your bigger items. And so in Penn Hills, that's included with the millage. So there's a little bit of a correlation between what our millage is and what some of those bigger costs are. So we're in the second year of a 5-year agreement with Republic. And so you can see that we're not proposing a tax increase for 26, but you can see on this graph that there was an increase most recently whenever we went into the new contract. It was no different. The last time in 2018 or 19 when we entered a new contract, that's when there was an increase too. So at least now there's a fund balance and there's a little bit more predictability as to where we're trying to go and sort of what we're trying to maintain. One of the things that we've been talking about, and again, there's no real, I have some general structure to how I want to go about this, but we've been talking about how we're going to replace our salt dome. And we started to get snow today, so the idea that we're not going to see snow again, or that we're not going to have to replace it, that's really wishful thinking. But one of the things I wanted to point out is the fact that we're looking at a salt dome of about $3 million, right? And in fact, if you went back on this graph and you looked at 2018, 2019, $3 million was basically all the money there was. So I think that's really interesting to point out that we're looking at a situation where we are at an all-time financial strength, and that's not me saying that. That's the credit rating, Moody's, right? And so when they say it, it matters. Well, that didn't happen. That happened for a lot of reasons. But so a few years ago, we had a $3 million fund balance. So after you wouldn't have the choice of how to pay for it. You would have to borrow money. So the cost of borrowing for Penn Hills has gone down, presumably because our credit rating went up. So one of the things that we are looking to get some direction from Mayor and Council by the end of the year and incorporating into the budget is, what we would be looking at if we were to borrow $3 to $4 million for a salt dome. And I've shared some of this information. It's been provided, and there's nothing new here in the sense that this basically is showing this graph here what our debt position is in the general fund. We're almost debt free. Or in 2028 we make our last general fund bond payment of about $3.3 million. So under the plan that's been provided, and I know these numbers are a little small, we would basically be asked to add one more year onto to that debt. We would be starting to pay interest on the money now, and then in 29 we would pay the principal of $3 million. So that's the financing plan that we're looking at. So, but again, Penn Hills wouldn't have even had that conversation of to what to do, and if we had a catastrophic expense. And actually, that's not even the worst of what the expenses could be. So we're very fortunate to even have this ability to make financial plans and to start to look ahead. So that's one thing that's going on. And hopefully it seems like we're going to move forward. I think at least in the 26 budget we're proposing, we're assuming a borrowing in the budget for this. That's what's being assumed for the salt dome. So between now and the end of the year, as we have more of our meetings, we're going to come in with more information about that. The sewer fund revenue and expenses. Last year we started to focus on a little more to share the information about it. This is your rates and where they go. This is a helpful graph for someone that wants to understand the sewer budget. In that little box, it tells you what all the revenue is. Mostly it comes from the charges for the service. And then underneath you can see that there's Elkasan charges. That's what we pay because Elkasan processes about 75% of Penn Hills flows. And so they charge us a rate. We're a customer, just as all of the other customers. And so all of that's very predictable. And so those are the three big areas that we end up funding in our sewer department, and it's out of that last $4.2 million. It's that local treatment cost. We're getting a lot of service for that $4 million. That $4 million is covering all of the things associated with the projects that we vote on when we have our votes. The construction projects, that's all of the professional fees that goes with it. That's all of the cost of the employees, the staff, the director, all of it. So all of our treatment, the plants, the maintenance, the pump station, and I have the list of all of it, that's all included with that 4.2 million there. And there's no change in our local rate next year for sewer rates either. But if you've been following the meetings, you know that our sewer rate has several components to it, and as I said, one of them is the Elkasan piece because they charge us, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen after 26 because in 2021 Elkasan set a 5-year rate schedule, which was helpful. Elkasan told everybody in 2021 what the rate will be for the next 5 years for planning purposes. And it was 7%. We saw 7% increases under that. So next year is a 7% increase from Elkasan. But then we don't know what they're going to do in 27 and after, so we have to wait and see. So our local rate's not changing, but the Elkasan rate is going up, which we knew because they told us that in advance. So there's no smoke and mirrors there. And in their defense, they have the same cost we do. We was on a tour recently. Some of the community was there. A lot of the people in the room were there, and we were looking at some of their capital projects that they're doing. And it's just as expensive for their organization to do a lot of those projects as it is for ours. And we know that it is expensive as we go. So that's what's happening there. And we're going to wait to see what they do. We don't know yet. And that's the estimate. That's actually from last year. But every year they tell us what we're going to be expected to pay them. So that's part of that calculation. And here's some information from people that you may not know what. And again, I'm not focusing just, why am I highlighting the sewer department operations? Well, because a lot of people don't really know all of what they do. And it's underground, so you don't really see it. But in this staffing box, that's everything. That's the whole works of everybody that's keeping things going. And, it's just to summarize it, we need more people. We've needed more. We need more certified operators, but that's nothing that's new. It's just that staffing level in that box That's really almost a skeleton crew when you look at what they're doing. When you add up the people that are there, it's a lot of people, but not for what it is. I mean, there's a lot of plants, there's a lot of pump stations, so they're really doing the best they can with 251 miles of sewer lines, 7,800 manholes. That's a lot. So they're taking care of a lot of things. The director today, she gave me a rundown of just some of the things that they did through 25. I mean, it's a lot of mileage, linear feet. So they've been covering a lot of ground with a skeleton crew. Again, just some information about their facilities. This is from a prior year that gives you information about all of the things that they're doing. That's where the local fee is, that $4.2 million that we just looked at. That's covering all of this. It's quite a lot. It seems pretty efficient to me to cover 30 buildings and everything that goes with it. So, thank you to those members of Penn Hill staff too, because sometimes they feel that they don't get as much recognition perhaps as other departments because we don't necessarily see what they do all the time. So wanted to share that. And we've been seeing some encouraging financial information with our sewer fund balance too. There hasn't been a rate increase in our sewer rate since the service charge went in. There was a service charge that went in back in 2016. That was the last time there was a change made to it, and then there was a reduction, as I recall, as well. But our sewer fund balance, we're up right now to what looks to be a little bit over $4 million. So we're planning our projects too, because there's, as you know, there's a lot of need. There's always a never-ending capital need for any organization like ours, and so it has to be planned and programmed because you can't do it all at one time. So Sherry, with the sewer director and working with Gateway, we find ways to program money without depleting the fund, because just as I said that a few years ago we had a $3 million fund balance that wasn't really going to go necessarily that far. It's really the same thing with the sewer fund too. If there was a sewer emergency or a very big expense, that it's really not a good idea to have very little fund balance to absorb that. So that's just some highlighted information on where we're at with our sewer fund for people that are interested in that. Something new that I'm bringing in for this year that we've not really looked at, and there's not a lot to it. It's one of our easier ones. I like this one because it's really kind of easy. And this is our liquid fuels fund. We don't really talk very much about it, but like every community in the Commonwealth, we get a certain share of the gasoline tax based on mileage, and there's a somewhat complicated formula that I don't pretend to know all of it. But we get from the state shared revenue about $1.2 million, and that's based on a street mile estimate, and it's based on a per capita estimate for our population. But when we get that money, we're only allowed to use it for roadway-related things. So most of it is spent on salt and winter maintenance, and a big portion of it is spent on street lighting expenses. And I just want to share with you on that note that as I was preparing this, I had some discussions with Duquesne Light, and Duquesne Light's in the middle of a project right now where they're almost completed. They're going to have a really good, and I don't want to mischaracterize what it is, but they're basically having more of a efficient way of cataloging where all the street lights are in Penn Hills through a GPS system, if you will. And so they're really close to completing that study as to knowing exactly where all the lights are. But I do want to share with you the fact that, in Penn Hills, we are spending over $600,000 a year for the street lighting expenses. So, and it is a lot. I'm not suggesting that we make a change to it. Nobody's lights are being shut off. I'm not saying that we should reduce that. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, if you compare that number to what some similar, and when I say similar, I mean similar geography, similar road miles, similar population size. We have a lot of lighting. So if anyone in Penn Hills feels that we don't have a lot of streetlights, I would probably disagree with them and point to this number and look at similar communities. So and again, if you don't have street lighting, maybe you want more. Everyone isn't it? Some people have too much lighting; they want less. So we've had that too. But it's just wanted to point out it's something we've not really brought in, but it's a lot that we fund there. So it might be going down a little bit because of what Duquesne Light's working on as well. And so that's that. Something new that I wanted to bring in and into next year, because when you look at our budget from year to year, there's not really, it's stabilized, and there's not really, that's why they gave us a stable outlook, right? Moody's gave us an A+ stable. It meant that things are supposed to be predictable. That's what they should be. And there's not a whole lot of changes in our budget. As I said, there's no cuts in service, but we are looking at proposing next year some initiatives for traffic calming. That's been something we've been working on for a while. I see it every day. I just was talking to someone from PennDOT about something I saw this morning, just the way some folks drive, and it is a concern that we all share. And so we're doing what we can about it within, the confines, not so much the confines, but through the parameters of what we're allowed to do, with the police department and with local initiatives. So there is a traffic calming policy that's been introduced. Council's not had a chance to vote on it yet, but I'm expecting probably they will soon. The traffic committee is still working on it. And if you want a copy of it, if you're interested in it, I'd be happy to give it to you. And we've given some presentations on it at the CDC. We presented it, and some other places. So we didn't get that over the finish line this year necessarily, but it's not forgotten about because we're definitely working towards it. And we're also reinstituting the traffic division next year's budget. That was something that was its own budget a couple of years ago, and then it went away. And so we're bringing that back, and we're gonna be adding in a police officer that will help in not only in helping to reduce some of the more egregious speeding that we see. We've also introduced, as you may see in Penn Hills around town, some of these speed trailers, for lack of a better word, that tell you how fast you're going. That's all part of the same effort. We've also invested in a new, for lack of a better word, to describe it, the counter. There's a machine that does the actual traffic count that the police use. And so we have a little bit of a better one than we had, that's going to give us a little bit more information. And also, one of the things that I've really I've talked to staff about, and again, it's what I'm trying to get through is just some highlights. There's a lot of things that I want to do, and that we all want to do, that we want to see happen. But I really want to prioritize being more aggressive on some of the tagging the on-the-road abandoned cars. We have a lot of abandoned cars, and there's a process for that. The ones that are on private property, the code enforcement office handles those. But any of the ones on the road are police. And a lot of the times, even if you ride around, I see in Penn Hills a lot of the times the cars are tagged, but then the people move the car. And I know that there's a lot of paperwork that goes with that, and there's a little bit of we didn't create the process, but it's a state process that they has to go through. They have to give notice and so forth. But I really want to make a priority of trying to go after, and I don't want to use that phrase the wrong way, but I want to focus on trying to get more of the abandoned cars off the road, because I feel like we have our fair share of them. So that's something we're going to hopefully work on next year. Also, now this is pictures, but it's not, these are renderings. We were fortunate enough to acquire a police motorcycle from the University of Pittsburgh. This is something that our new police chief, through some of his contacts at the university, was able to get. Now it's being re-detailed would be the word. It's being detailed for Penn Hills. So we think that this is going to add to it as well. We thought that this was a good investment for the amount of money, and mechanically it works great. So that's coming soon too next year. Just to give you that highlight. And this represents all of the expenses next year if you were to look at them, as part of a whole. And it doesn't change that much from year to year. And most of what we see is our police department budget, it's about 30%. And that's true. That's the average for most towns of any size. It's usually about 30%. And then you could see some of the other things. And again, this is all done and provided and put online, presumably, so that you can look at it at your leisure as you want to see. And so a lot of that is predictable, So and next year, like I said, we had the slide at the beginning where we were showing, we've had quite a bit of increases, but we had to do something right. We had the combination right for sure, because we did have the surplus in '24, and that was before we saw any kind of a additional tax increase or any additional revenue. So that was really good news to see a surplus at Penn Hills, because it's just not something we're hearing about these days. You're right. I mean, we're on time, and we have what seemingly is good financial news. So, I want to be cautiously optimistic, but definitely compared to where things are in some other places, near and far, I feel like things are in a much better situation here than they could be, and I think that's really because of some of the people that are here as well. So just to restate that again. And the library budget, it is there. There is not an increase. There's not a decrease proposed in their budget. They right now what's showing is 2.6% in additional funding, and we give the library about over $660,000. But there is some issues maybe with RAD that we're looking at. We're also matching some funds. We're potentially matching some grants that are going in soon at the library, so that may change depending on some of those needs. But those are the bigger highlights that I have for next year. There is an opportunity, two more opportunities, as it were, for the public. There's a public hearing. There's two public hearings coming up. So. And this will be online, and we'll be available between now and the end of the year for any of the questions about what's going on. But the biggest things is there's no reduction in services, and there's no increase in taxes. So I think that's something. I think that's good news.
Thank you very, very much. This is the part of the meeting where it says council comments. I can tell you that I'm going to withhold my comments until we finish. We've got two more budget hearings, so I personally won't be making any comment tonight. But Deputy Mayor, do you have any comment tonight?
I do. I'm just going to be brief because I'd like to hold my comments until then also, Mayor. So thank you. Scott, I just want to say thank you for your budget presentation. It's always very detailed, transparent, very informative. Thank you for putting your mind to it and really putting in the work to give us that information. Thank you for highlighting our future. In Penn Hills, our future looks great. So I'm very excited to be a resident of Penn Hills, and you should be as well. Now, that police motorcycle chief, good job. That's just one more thing, another feather in your hat. Don't know who's going to be assigned to drive that motorcycle, but I'm so sure that that's going to be a great incentive for the officers to come to work. So great job, and what a nice asset to our fleet. So good job. Thank you.
Councilor Fascio, any comment?
Just like to kind of second what the Deputy Mayor said. Looking at a budget with no tax increase and no cut in services is a very nice thing to see. So thank you and the staff.
Thank you. Councilman
Across
Waldron.
the board.
I'm sorry, thank you. Councilman Waldron.
In addition to thanking Scott, I'd just like to thank Sherry over there, because I'm sure she had her hand in that budget as well. So thank you.
And And I will just, thank you. And I will just say, this is council comment, however, and we do take questions during the budget process, but if anybody has any questions now, there may or may not be an answer tonight, but at least at the next budget hearing, the answer might be ready for you. So if anybody has any questions now, feel free to come up and ask. And this certainly is not the last opportunity, because we have 2 more hearings and then another, so there's at least 3 more opportunities. And you don't have to do it just in these meetings as well. You can also do that during the week.
Hello, Mayor. I'm Betty Arndt. I live at 172 Highland Road, and I'm a member of the Penn Hill Shade Tree Commission. Is tonight that you're asking, do we have questions? Is tonight the night that we can make some suggestions in terms of the budget or recommendations, or is that not appropriate tonight?
Sure, feel free.
Okay. Kathy Rayborn, who is our distinguished chair, had another commitment tonight, so she asked me to just bring to the attention of the manager, mayor, and council the recommendation that we respectfully make, knowing that funding is tight, but our concern is about the maintenance of the property surrounding the government center. When this building was built, they put a lot of money into landscaping, but unfortunately, they didn't leave you, Scott, with any, legacy of money to care for the very complex planting that was done. And we feel that it's not maybe the best look for the building, and so if a certain amount of investment, and we're not sure exactly what it would take, could be done to deal with some routine mulching, some weeding, some removal of invasive species, and periodic pruning of the trees, it would really do a lot to improve the look of the building. And after all, we do a lot of work out there on the roads throughout Penn Hills to try to put our best foot forward. So the building doesn't look horrible, don't get me wrong, but it could use some kind of an investment in the maintenance of this lovely surrounding property. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I did get that email from Ms. Rayborn, and I've been talking with the Director of Public Works, and so we're gonna hopefully maybe have a little bit more improved plan. We've done, I think we've done overall well with our own forces, as you alluded to. Whenever the building was built there, it was never contracted out. So we did it in-house. Sometimes it's contracted out. Now, we did that to save money. And so we're going to try to be a little more conscientious about keeping up with a little better. But obviously, we always have to balance needs, and they have to balance their work cycle as well. But it's under consideration, sure.
My name is Bill Mouts, 1335 Maple Avenue. I thank you, Mr. Andrasik, Municipal Manager, for that great presentation. That was fantastic. I love no taxes and no loss in services. I was wondering, I noticed online that we're going to be redoing the plumbing at the William McKinley Center. Is that correct? And every year or so, or 2 years, there's always a large expenditure at the William McKinley Center, and it seems like it's a millstone around our budget. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time to sell that building. I'm sure you get $3 or $4 million for it and pay for your salt dome. Thank you.
Any further comment or question? Well, having said that, as you know, we have 2 more budget hearings coming up, so thank you so very much, and we hope to see you at them, and this meeting's adjourned.